Hey there, I'm Keegan. I've worked at SLG for a lot of years now, and yeah, this is some of the features that I've thought about a lot throughout my time here. Sorry, I'm a kind of a silhouette. There's a very bright window behind me, but yeah, I'll do my best with showing you guys some of this new stuff that I just sent out a blog about as well recently. So in Eco, and please do let me know in the chat if you guys experience any technical problems so I can be sure to try and address those. So in the past in Eco, the way we've generated rock and ore has been through, just knocked over my pen, has been through a layer system. And while that is in place still in Eco 9.0, we've substantially improved it with a deposit module system that was added on top of that. And in addition to that module, we also revamped all of the layers. I went through and updated them all for all the biomes. And I see some comments already about this wood, which is also a new thing in 9.0, is a lot of new materials to build with that are all directly from the ecosystem. So this is ceiba wood from the rainforest tree you can see over there. And yeah, so this is a giant little hole in the coast here that also intersects with the grassland. And different biomes have their own set of layers, just as they did in the previous patch. Like I said, they've all been updated. And within those layers, we've added all sorts of new deposits. So here you can see a large coal deposit that's coming out of the grassland biome. And in the coast biome, you can see there's a lot of limestone that's intersecting with sandstone layers. There's also an iron ore layer here. And further down towards the bedrock, one of the common things in Eco we have is a gneiss basement. So this is the gneiss metamorphic rock that's oftentimes near the bottom of the world in Eco. And then this dark rock here, that's kind of hard to see on the screen right now, is basalt, which is what underlays pretty much all of the oceans. So yeah, this appears to be a, oh no, yeah, this is I think this is a warm coast. And on warm coasts there is a fairly significant amount of iron ore that you can access down below. I don't want to spoil everything with all the biomes like this, but I wanted to show you a big cutaway. We added the tool that allows us to make these kinds of cutaways so that we can debug things as we go. And yeah, I'll show you some more stuff though. So, one of the big points of doing this is that basically it'll mean that all the ore in the game is much more concentrated. Players will basically be digging through bedrock, and so this is a cutaway where only the soil has been removed. So in this mine, it's just the soil that's taken away, and underneath the soil, what you can see here is granite bedrock, and as well as limestone and sandstone. This mine is actually dug on another biome border area, so there's grassland over here. You can see that sandstone is extending out to the edge of. Then there's actually warm forest here, where you can see all this granite. So this kind of shows how the biomes have their own geology, and that's something that is a good way to start getting everything set up to be localized to particular areas. I imagine as we go throughout development, we'll be possibly looking at creating geology that's independent from the biomes as well, just to give it even more variety. So one of the new things that's been added with all this generation is actually crushed rock and ore is a big thing in Eco 9.0, which relates both to these natural deposits, because you can have crushed ore that's being eroded by the soil above, and also because we've done a ton of mineral processing updates that properly starts to represent how you actually want to be crushing and concentrating ore in Eco. So that's something that we may go over in a future stream, but we have new world objects for all that as well. So yeah, you can see the crushed limestone and sandstone, and there's also, as you can see, areas of, this is actually crushed iron ore. So as you're exploring throughout the world, you'll also be able to find crushed ore, which you can directly take and begin concentrating as kind of a little kickstart to some of your metal production endeavors. And yeah, so one of the big things that we've added, I think I actually lost my train of thought earlier when I was describing the ore deposits and why we've added them. Having the ore specifically concentrated into blobs rather than being in layers will make it so that players, as they're mining through all this bedrock, when you encounter intact ore, because the crushed ore is not necessarily indicative of an ore deposit, when you encounter intact ore, you'll know that you've found an ore body. And ore bodies can be different shapes and sizes, but in general, you're going to be pretty guaranteed that the ore body you found is significant, and you'll be able to approach it as like, okay, now I've found this big blob of ore. Now I can think about, how do I want to dig the mine to best extract this? And it'll be lots and lots of that ore all in one place. So it'll make it so that you have to think about the size and the shape of the mine you're making, and it will also make it more satisfying because you'll be looking, and then when you find the ore body, you'll know you've got the beginnings of a successful mine, and you have to just think about how you want to get all that ore out of the ground. So, as an example, as you're looking, you can walk around obviously and start digging, looking for things. Of course, this begins to take a while, depending on how far you want to go and what biome you're in, how deep the ore is. So given the fact that ore is no longer in layers that's everywhere, we really wanted to make sure that we had ways for players to search for it that weren't quite as tedious as just digging a hole anywhere they wanted to look. So we added a really significant new tool for mining exploration, which are the rock drills. And there are two tiers of rock drills. Here's the iron rock drill. So this is one that you can get earlier on in the game. And with the rock drill, what you can do is you can drill through the ground and actually look and see what blocks you're drilling into. And that will allow you to explore for ore and see what you can find. So with the drill, if I look at the world, I can use it both horizontally or vertically. So if I start drilling down, I get this new UI. And you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, it's displaying the blocks that it's drilling through. So I just drilled through 1 block of dirt and 9 blocks of granite. So I didn't strike it rich there. But the more you're able to do this, the more you're likely to find something that's interesting. And the second tier of rock drill will let you dig a lot deeper. I think already in this version we're going to be increasing it from what I have in this build right now, because some of the ore is deep. Now, how deep the ore is totally customizable in world gen, and for this particular biome I'm in right now, cold forest, is actually very deep. This is a biome that has some earth resources that are kind of they're kind of like go big or go home. You are sort of unlikely to easily find them, but if you do find a copper deposit in the cold forest, it's going to be really big. So that's a good example of how, really depending on the world generation of your individual world, where you have your most important mine will be completely different, because it will really be centered around this one localized huge deposit that you may or may not find. Other biomes are made more with the idea that the resources are a little bit easier to find, a little bit more reliable. So as you go, you'll just have to explore the different biomes and find which ones are easier to find, which ones are harder to find, but maybe more worthwhile. So in this biome, you have to go pretty deep to start to get really likely to find something. However, some of the deposits are very large and do extend towards the top of the surface. The shape of copper ore bodies in eco is actually loosely based on porphyry deposits in the real world, which are basically formed around a dead volcano, and they're more vertically oriented. You know, they're areas of rock that's been metamorphically altered by heat, basically. And so at the very bottom of this very deep hole, drilling further down, I realized that I've stumbled into some copper ore here. So one of the cool features of the drills is that you can also press tab when you've drilled a hole, and if you hover over any of these blocks, you can actually get a little button here that will allow you to add a map marker to where that block was, so that you can quickly and easily record your finds on the map. So I just marked that copper ore is here. And yes, this is a very deep hole, but as I was trying to describe earlier, this biome is kind of an exception in terms of an extreme version of the concentration of ore. But if we were to just dig down, and I'm going to do this with the dev tool, just to show you. But sure enough, down here, we've stumbled into some copper ore. And if I were to excavate this, I can tell you it's going to be a lot of copper ore. So in places like this, it might be hard to find, but once you've found it, this is going to be a really big deposit that you could basically, you know, be mining for most of the copper that you would need. And I'll get out of this hole though. So yeah, so that's really deep, but I can tell you that deposit probably extends quite a ways vertically as well. So that's the basics of the ore deposits. Let's see if I can show you a more direct example of... Oh yes, I think I'll just do a cutaway in real time here to show you guys the shapes of the ore a little bit better under the ground. So I hope this elk doesn't mind, but I'm about to mess with its world quite a lot. So this is I'm going to do a big cutaway here. So we added this command that will let us remove specific block types all at once in a given area. So if I take all the soil out rather, I'll begin to clear everything away. And I can start already knowing that I'm going to want to be removing the bedrock. So you can see here there's granite and basalt in the, I believe this is the taiga. I can check what biome it is real quick just to be sure. Yeah, so this is the taiga. And if I remove all this granite and basalt by doing remove granite and remove all the basalt, I can also remove water, because that's going to get kind of in the way here. Oh, and there we have, you can see already. I'm going to get rid of all this water. So this is a copper ore deposit, and as you can see, it's very, very vertically concentrated. It's very large, goes down very deep. There's also an intrusion of gneiss coming up here next to it. And what is this? I think this is just yeah, that's just a chunk building glitch. Removing this many blocks at once is not something you're going to be doing quite like that in the real game, so it can be a little glitchy. But yeah, this is a big old porphyry style copper deposit. And down here, okay, so that's nice. There is also gold in this biome, but we did not strike it rich on this large excavation here. But yeah, this is a perfect example of you know, how concentrated the deposits can be. And so copper ore will be vertical like this. It'll be it's like sort of it's kind of formed in response to the way like magma rises up from volcanoes and is affecting the rock around it as it rises. So it tends to be like this vertical kind of deposit going out from there. And other rocks like iron ore are sedimentary, so they form in horizontal layers. And so the way you extract different types of ore, you'll start to learn that you'll want to be building different shapes of mines. You know, for a mine like this, you'd probably want to, once you found it, you know, you'd basically be trying to build a vertical tube around it, and not bothering to go horizontally out from it, because you know you're not going to find as much. And one question I see: do they always spawn vertical with copper? In general, yes, but the actual how vertical it is, there is a variation there. So this is quite a vertical one. They can be less vertical than this. They can be more squished out than that. And they can also be, I think, even a little bit more vertical than that too. So they all have variation. You know, we wanted to make it so that there is a variance in what they look like. And one thing you'll also eventually encounter is you can really get lucky and strike it rich sometimes with multiple deposits that end up in the same place. So that'll really give you a feeling of like reward if you happen to stumble on a double deposit or even a triple deposit of something like this copper. So yeah, that'll probably impact the way that, you know, where everything is that you're building from that point onwards. It can be oriented around that. All right, so that covers pretty much the basics of ore generation and rock drills. I'm going to start looking at the chat and seeing what questions you guys have. So let's see here. Looking through the chat. Are the insects used for recipes, or are they just a cute addition? Insects are a thing that are coming in with 9.0 that are just the beginning of what we want them to be eventually. Invertebrates are, of course, a very important part of any ecosystem. So we've gotten some sort of visual representation in for them right now, but we're definitely hoping that eventually they are both an important part of the ecosystem simulation and also things that you could potentially collect and display and use in various ways. Let's see here. Somebody's asking, Supine Slug is asking, any kind of dowsing mechanic / technology? I was actually thinking about joking about that as I was looking around for ore in this stream. But right now, in terms of exploration, the drill is the main thing. But we are certainly thinking about other options. One thing that I would love to do is add a pounder module for a truck that would allow you to, for an end game technology that would allow you to attach a module to a truck that pounds the ground. In real life, oftentimes they'll use that kind of a thing to basically get a digital image of the ground underneath them by recording the way that the waves sent out from the pounding reflect differently back on different kinds of rock. So representing that technology would be really cool end game. And yes, the drills can be used horizontally as well. Try that out real quick. And the other big thing with the drills is that, they're for 9.0, they're going to be just for exploration, but there's a much larger purpose also for the drills, which I can definitely hint at now, which is that one of the most important ways that you can mine by hand in eco in the future, something we've been thinking about for a long time now, is blasting. And so eventually the idea is that you'll be able to drill a hole, and then you'll be able to actually insert explosives into the drill hole and detonate them to quickly destroy and crush tons of rock through drill and blasting. And once you have that capability, that'll really, again, change the way that you're going about mining something like this copper deposit. There's a technique in real life called stoping, where you basically dig underneath a ore deposit, and then you drill into it, insert explosives, you blast it, and all the rock falls down, and you can collect it. And in the end, I'm really hoping that that's something that's going to be doable in eco in the future someday. So the drills are not just for exploration, they're also laying the groundwork for potential future improvements like that could be really exciting. So yeah, they're a good step along the way. So yes, we also have a question. Any plans to separate tailings from slag? That is actually happening in Eco 9.0. So we have done a massive sort of increase and improvement in the representation and the granularity of mineral processing in 9.0. So that involves slag is now a byproduct from smelting, and there's actually a whole crushing and concentrating process. And the concentrating process is where tailings comes from. So that's going to be, again, detailed in a future blog post and potentially stream. So let's see, what other questions do we have? And, oh yeah, so a lot of the ways that we're also spawning ore in the world does relate to future mineral processing changes as well, and some that are coming in with 9.0. So tailings itself has been increased in granularity to have wet tailings and dry tailings. And part of the big thing about trying to represent the impact of the mining industry and eco is that certain ores tend to be, they have much more of an impact than others, at least per ton of rock mined. And iron ore tends to be fairly concentrated, and you can actually process and concentrate it with dry processes that mean you have much more stable and potentially inert tailings. So iron ore mining is not, quite as destructive as something like copper and gold ore. And the thing about copper and gold ore is they're far less concentrated in terms of the amount of ore per rock compared to iron. So proportionally, they create way more tailings that you have to deal with. So those are the kinds of things we're thinking about as we're going to be changing the balance of how much of each different kinds of ore there are in the world. So some of the changes in 9.0 are preparing for that, though not all of those features are in 9.0 yet. So I think that's getting close to what we'll leave it at for today. But let's see. There's a question, any more metals planned, like aluminum? Yes, we are absolutely planning on more metals in the game. Aluminum is actually one of the ones that I'm hoping to do first. Aluminum and or titanium would be the top of the list currently for new metals that we would add. And we've already, determined basically roughly where they would be. Aluminum ore is oftentimes in clays in the rainforest, and titanium ore we would put inside sand on the beach, actually. So we've got, do the drills not remove the blocks they've prospected? Yes, so right now the drills don't remove the blocks. I think at some point we would try to consider how they might affect the blocks, or we might try to consider, especially when we get blasting, having persistent drill holes so that you could drill a hole and then come back to it later and insert the explosives. That's something that we haven't implemented yet for 9.0, as primarily we really wanted them to just be a nice, simple, easy way to explore and see what's inside the ground. And then I get the question, what about uranium? Uranium is, of course, also something we've thought about. It's something that, we would definitely be adding whenever we get the chance to properly approach adding nuclear power back into the game. So, yep. I think that might be it for the stream today. I'm going to go ahead and say thanks so much for watching. And yeah, we're hard at work on 9.0. We know it's been a very long time. But yeah, it's getting much, much closer now, and we're excited to share it all with you as soon as we can. All right, guys, you take care out there, and yeah, stay safe and healthy.